You've described what seems like an insurmountable amount of power on the part of the corporations and the Republican Party, but we see that when working people take a stand, the right can be caught off guard and their agenda can even be stopped. Can you talk about this and its relation to the elections?
Well, I think one of the great inspirations in this situation that we are facing is, of course, the huge outpouring of hundreds of thousands of people in Wisconsin in particular, looking at Wisconsin, and now I believe it's 5 or more will be recalled because the signatures have been collected for that purpose. It shows people are standing up basically for democracy with a small d. I believe democracy is just under attack here. The right to a voice at work, in your community, the right to a job. I think the basic point of contention that is being dealt with really continues to be the role of government. And many people who hadn't really seen it before are now understanding, that if government is going to address the common good, then we the people have to affirm that right. It was so beautiful how the students came out to stand with their teachers in the beginning of the struggle in Wisconsin, and the role of young people in all of this, I think, is tremendous. So they've grown up, knowing Bush, and now here's Obama, and then seeing all the obstacles and saying, hey, wait, why does it have to be this way? There are other positive things. There's a lot of searching that's going on in the country, and I think we have to look and examine it at all new experiments in different ways of attempting to build political independence, and by that I mean independence of the big-moneyed corporate interests. And one of those ways of building independence is what the labor movement is launching, as far as the worker-to-worker and neighbor-to-neighbor contact and discussion and mobilization, and actually seeking out union activists to run for local office in a much bigger way. There's other things, like there's Working Families Party. They're utilizing the fusion concept in states where that's legal. And Vermont is really interesting with the Progressive Party and sending Bernie Sanders all the way to the Senate. That filibuster speech that he gave exposing control of corporate money and greed was very significant. It's a book now. And so today he introduces a bill for don't kill Medicare, expand Medicare to everybody. So he's now introduced a bill for single payer into the U.S. Senate. Not saying that it's going to pass because we have the filibuster problem there, etc. But the fact that within Vermont, the state government is now in the process of putting into place the first single-payer experiment, then gives him the ability to do that in the U.S. Senate. So there are pockets of experiments around the country that are, kind of getting out ahead, which is terrific, and we should pay attention to them and see how to build on them. I don't think there's any one way, and the big national development, I think, is in reaction to Wisconsin, Ohio, the governors there, and then joining with the civil rights movement and the rural, the farmers, and all the different sectors of society, and seeing that this is a time when we have to build a huge movement in our country to save and expand democracy.
In an earlier part of our conversation, you mentioned the need to be ideologically prepared, which seems to mean that we have to be ready to understand the kinds of rhetoric Republicans are going to use to divide voters, to instill fear, etc., among working-class voters. Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by that?
I think this election, once again, is going to hinge around the economy. I'm sure that the right will try to use different social issues, etc., in divisive ways, but I believe the main thrust is going to be around the economy and how are people's lives. And it's such a horrible thing that when the monies were appropriated last year for cities and states and for, rebuilding infrastructure, etc., unfortunately it wasn't big enough, but it was a start. But then after the 2010 elections, it was impossible to get any more stimulus funds passed, and that's really a very big impediment to the recovery of the economy. And really, the Republican agenda is very, really unpatriotic because, they're so interested in, especially the Tea Party section, they're so interested in government not playing any role. That, for example, the governor in Florida just recently, he had turned down the money for a rail system in Florida. He's not the only one. And so now that money is being distributed to other states. Connecticut is getting a little of it, too. That was all those jobs and all that transportation that would have been there for Florida. And it's ironic because it was Jeb Bush who accepted that money, but this Tea Party governor is so reactionary and extreme that he doesn't want government to play any role. And so they have this catchphrase about how government doesn't create jobs, corporations create jobs, and therefore we have to continue to give more and more tax breaks to the corporations. We have to give more and more tax breaks will trickle down. This concept is what carried the day in the first Republican presidential debate that took place, I guess it was last week. And it's so entirely bogus. It was the exact same language that the Tea Party candidate for U.S. Senate here in Connecticut had used in the election, and fortunately she was defeated. Then we see, of course, Donald Trump. We see the use of racism certainly will be throughout, and probably other kinds of bigotry will be used throughout. This whole war on women that's taking place will be used throughout. But I think the centerpiece of the whole thing is going to be what is the role of government in relationship to how do we create jobs, and are we going to keep going down this path of the race to the bottom, or are we going to tax the rich and end the wars and redirect the money to the cities and the states and really rebuild the country? That's the positive program that will have to be presented. President Obama, really, the accomplishments of the Obama administration are so underreported and distorted by especially the Fox News type of media. And so, that's a challenge for the Obama administration, for President Obama to be able to present what was accomplished, what has been accomplished. I'm sure that this new initiative around immigration reform will be part of the campaign as well. The administration will have to show how it is fighting with people, how it is fighting for people. And it's going to have to show, how the economy is or will be turned around. And it's going to be rough because it's very unlikely that, we're going to be in a much better economic situation by the time of the election. I think that on the ground, certainly starting with the African American community, there is a great appreciation for what he has been able to do in the face of all of the dirt and the mud that has been thrown his way, in the face of the agenda of the new leadership in Congress, which is stated to destroy the Obama administration, which therefore means to make life in the country difficult for people, that he's been trying to rise above that, and so that's very important. And at the same time, people are frustrated, anxious and worried, and more people are losing their homes. So there's going to have to be action taken to forestall some of this economic crisis of everyday living that's just affecting millions of people in our country, and turn that around and bring people together into action.